This is a Dynamite Network podcast.
Hey everyone, Johnny DC here at the top of the episode. With the approaching holiday season, we're officially underway with this year's holiday charity drive in lead up to our charity duel episode in December, which is going to be Alfred Pennyworth versus Edwin Jarvis. This year, all donations will be going once again to Pop Culture Classroom, a nonprofit organization that delivers high-quality, all-inclusive educational resources to school districts, teachers, and community organizations using comics, graphic novels, and related pop culture media. Their mission is to inspire a love of learning, increase literacy, celebrate diversity, and build community through the tools of popular culture and the power of self-expression. To donate, visit our official store through dynamicduel.com, where you'll find two donation options. One for if you're Team DC, and one if you're Team Marvel. Or go directly to dynamicduel.com/donatedc, one word, or dynamicduel.com/donatemarvel, which are linked in our show notes. We're making the charity drive a competitive duel this year, except the only stat is which side can donate the most. Everyone who donates will receive a digital poster featuring original art of Alfred and Jarvis, drawn New Yorker style by me. One lucky random donor will win a framed print of the Alfred vs. Jarvis art that we'll announce during that December duel episode. Which fan base will be the most charitable? We'll keep everyone posted as to which team is winning as donations come in during these upcoming episodes. On with the show! Hi, and welcome to the Dynamic Duel Podcast, a weekly show where we review superhero films and debate the superiority between Marvel and DC by comparing their characters in stat-based battle simulations. I'm Marvelous Joe. And I'm his twin brother, Johnny DC. And in this episode, we are going to review the latest Marvel Studios film to hit theaters, The Marvels. It was a pretty good time, I thought. I liked it. I liked the movie. I went in with no expectations, and I was still underwhelmed. That makes you a hater, because everybody literally felt the same way about the Flash movie and Blue Beetle. And if you can't be fair to this movie when you gave those movies like 4.5 stars, that makes you a piece of crap. Jeez, you don't gotta say it like it is, Marge. Yeah, just saying it as it is. We'll talk about the movie later on this episode. Before that, we're going to break down the latest comic book movie news to come out this past week, including the news that Deadpool 3, Captain America 4, Blade, Thunderbolts, and Venom 3 have all gotten new release dates. And we're going to talk about the first official teaser for the Deadboy Detectives television show. As always, we list our segment times in our episode description, so feel free to check out the show notes if you want to skip ahead to a particular topic. As our listeners may know, our duel simulator is so advanced that it's gained sentience, and has named itself the artificial lifeform for running extensive duels, just a rather very intelligent simulator 9000, or Alfred Jarvis 9000. Here's a quick message for our listeners, so listen up.
Why, hello there. Do you love listening and chatting about Marvel and DC? Then become a part of the Dynamic Duel community on Patreon, where you can choose from 3 tiers. The Dynamic 2.0 tier lets you listen to this podcast without ads and gives you access to its Discord chat group where you can chat with Johnny DC and Marvelous Joe. The Fantastic 4 tier gives you that and more with 2 bonus episodes each month, including bloopers and top 10 shows where Johnny and Joe count down your favourite Marvel and DC subjects. The X-Force tier makes you an executive producer of Dynamic Duel, where every month you help the host choose what to review and who to fight against each other. And finally, the Dynamite Podcast Network tier allows aspiring podcasters to create their own battle-focused show using this Monte Carlo simulator. Johnny and Joe will help you develop your show, provide graphic support and consultation, and get you simulation results to announce on your show. Pitch the twins your show via email at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com or by reaching out to them on social media. Check it out at patreon.com/dynamicduel. Pip pip cheerio.
Thanks, AJ9K, and thanks to everyone who supports the podcast. Be sure, guys, to tune into the Max Destruction podcast, which is part of the Dynamite Podcast Network, this Wednesday, tomorrow, where hosts Ken and Dustyn are going to pit Bruce Lee against Ip Man as portrayed by Donnie Yen. Also, tune into the Syndro World podcast this Thursday to find out who would win in an anime battle between Grey Fullbuster from Fairy Tail and Aokiji from One Piece.
Visit dynamicpodcast.com or click the link in our show notes to listen to all the shows in the Dynamic Podcast Network. But with that out of the way,
quick to the No Prize! A No Prize is an award Marvel used to give out to fans. Our version, the Dynamic Dual No Prize, is a digital award we post on Instagram and in our email newsletter for the person that we feel gave the best answer to our question of the week.
last week's question we asked, which not currently existing MCU character would you like to see get their own miniseries under the Marvel Spotlight banner and why? And this is coming off of the news that the Echo television series on Disney Plus will be under a new Marvel Spotlight banner that focuses on stories that are disconnected from the larger MCU narrative. Got a lot of great answers. Let's go ahead and run down our honorable mentions as well as the No Prize winner. Our first honorable mention goes to Rick McGrew, who said,
"Hey guys, Rick from the Retronomapod. The character I would choose for a Marvel character not in the MCU currently that would get their own series would be Mr. Sinister. He's been involved in a lot of major events and kind of always been in the shadows. And he was even mentioned kind of in New Mutants, the movie, but he'd be my pick, Mr. Sinister."
Yeah, that's a great answer. Mr. Sinister is a major X-Men villain, and with the X-Men characters kind of up and coming or soon to come into the MCU, I think it'd be a great idea to kind of explore some of these characters within the Marvel Spotlight banner before introducing them as threats in the X-Men movies.
Yeah, we haven't done a dual episode yet with Mr. Sinister, and that's a shame.
Yeah, that is a crime.
7 years. And how do you do that without a Mr. Sinister matchup? Weird.
I don't know. Who would he go up against, though?
That's not my problem. That's the executive producer's problem.
Great answer, Rick. Our next honorable mention goes to Travis Herndon, who said,
"Hey guys, Travis here. So my pick would have to be Kazar. I know he's a D-list hero, but I feel like you can do an interesting story following him. Introducing the Savage Lands into the MCU, as well as introducing other characters like Moon Boy and Devil Dinosaur into the MCU. I feel like there's a lot of potential with him, and bringing in something as crazy as the Savage Lands into the MCU finally would be an interesting world building experience. So yeah."
Yeah, Kazar's a great idea for Marvel Spotlight banner, especially since his stories take place in the Savage Land, which is all the way down in Antarctica. And really, like, when is the MCU ever going to go down and explore Antarctica? The continent is largely, isolated, and so therefore the stories of the Savage Land could also be largely isolated. I think it's a fantastic answer, especially since it's kind of a way to incorporate these like Jurassic Park type elements with like the dinosaurs and the jungle and everything into the MCU, which we haven't really seen before.
Yeah, we really haven't seen that anywhere outside of Jurassic Park. And I actually know who would be a perfect duel matchup for Kazar if we ever did that duel. Commandy.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's perfect. Maybe one day we'll get around to that. Obviously, Mr. Sinister would be a priority over Kazar, but Kazar is a cool character. It would be cool to even pair him up in like a team duel alongside Shanna the She-Devil. You know what's crazy, though, is that Dustyn Balcom gave this exact same answer of Kazar. So apparently Kazar has a lot of fans out there. We need to capitalize on that soon with a duel.
I'm all for it. Let's do it. Great answer, Travis and Dustyn. Our final honorable mention goes to Luke Tucker, who said,
"Hey guys, this is Luke, and I would like to see a Sentry miniseries under the Marvel Spotlight banner. I think with the darker themes and more mature tone that it's setting up, we could really go into the backstory of Robert Reynolds as a meth addict who finds the Golden Sentry Serum and becomes a superhero who's kind of like Marvel's answer to Superman. I think with him rumored to appear in the Thunderbolts movie, it'd be a perfect time to do this. All right, thanks guys."
Finally, someone we have done a duel with, right? We recently did a duel with the Sentry against General Zod, which was a pretty good episode. I think this is a fantastic answer. The rumor is that the Sentry is going to be the primary villain of the Thunderbolts movie, as Luke said. But the Sentry really has a great enough story that deserves its own project outside of just being, relegated to villain status in another film. I think the Sentry is a phenomenal, if not a perfect candidate for a Marvel Spotlight banner series.
Yeah, of the answers we've received so far, I think this one has the most likelihood of actually happening, considering the rumors that he's in Thunderbolts.
Right. Yeah, I think they would actually be doing the character of the Sentry a disservice if they didn't dedicate a substantial amount of time to his story apart from the Thunderbolt story.
Because, right, in the Thunderbolts movie, you want to see more of like the team dynamic, not necessarily the villain. Maybe. I could be wrong. But yeah, I think a Sentry miniseries would be fantastic.
So great answer, Luke. We want to give a quick shout out to Andrew Schunk and Nate Mantaneo for also leaving your answers. Although Andrew Schunk was like, Marvel sucks. Let's do a Marvel Spotlight show for a DC character because Marvel sucks. And
yeah, great answer.
That was not a great answer. But the winner of this week's No Prize is Colby Henches, who said,
"Hey boys, Colby Henches. I'd like to see Marvel Spotlight in part fix Marvel's villain problem. Give me a backstory, give me the motivation, give me their raison d'etre. That way when they show up on the big screen at the end of some movie, everybody already knows what's up. I want Marvel Spotlight to give me Victor Von Doom."
Hell yes, bro. Like, this is the perfect answer, right? Victor Von Doom, Dr. Doom, one of the greatest, if not the greatest Marvel villain in all of Marvel history. Absolutely has yet to be done justice on the big screen, for one, but also has a fascinating backstory on his own that should be explored in a project separate from a Fantastic Four movie. Kind of like how the Loki television series, Loki's such a fascinating character. He got his own show. I think Dr. Doom is definitely worthy of getting his own show.
Yeah, Dr. Doom, and actually I think a lot of MCU villains would be good enough to get their own series, which would help their villain problem. I think that the villain for the film we're going to review later on this episode, The Marvels, Dar-Ben, yeah, give her own thing. That way we learn a little bit more about the backstory and lead up to this film.
Dar-Ben was only like in 8 issues of the comic book, so I don't know if she even has enough backstory to explore in her own television show.
Well, I don't know, make it a Hollis series then. I don't care. Just more.
Yeah. A Kree series, yeah, that could work. But it wouldn't work as well as Dr. Doom. Dr. Doom needs to have his own Marvel Spotlight series. Enough said. So great answer, Colby, for winning this week's No Prize. If you, the listener, want a shot at winning your own No Prize, stay tuned to later on this episode when we'll be asking another question of the week. And now that that's done,
on to the news.
All right, this past week, the SAG-AFTRA strike with the studios ended. Actors are allowed to go back to work, but due to the length of the strike, both the writer strike and the actor strike, we have some new release dates to report. A lot of things got pushed back, and I'm not happy about it. Damn studios. But the Deadpool movie was the first victim. The movie was supposed to come out on May 3rd. It was supposed to open up the summer movie season in 2024. It's been pushed back to the middle of summer and will now come out on July 26th. This was my most anticipated upcoming Marvel movie, so to see it get pushed back like this is heartbreaking because I'm really impatient and I don't want to wait an additional few months. But, such is the life of a comic book movie fan. Am I right?
I mean, not a DC fan. Superman Legacy kept its release date.
Well, good for you. That's still not coming out until 2025, so I'm not even thinking about that right now. The July 26th release date was originally held by Captain America Brave New World. That movie got pushed back to 2025 on Valentine's Day, February 14th. Another movie to get pushed back into 2025 is The Thunderbolts, which was originally going to come out around Christmas time on December 20th, 2024. That's now going to come out in the middle of the summer of the next year on July 25th. And the final casualty for Marvel Studios is Blade. Seemingly, this movie is never going to come out. I think this is like the 5th or 6th delay that it's received. But the movie was originally going to come out on Valentine's Day 2025 and is now coming out at the end of the year on November 7th, 2025. So that's all horrible news. In addition to Marvel Studios, Sony also had to push back their release of Venom 3, which was originally going to come out July 12th, 2024, but got pushed back to the end of the year on November 8th, 2024. A lot of bullcrap for, something that I feel like could have been solved simply, but that being said, I don't have any skin in the game. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, you don't. I'm actually surprised to hear that some of those release dates were relatively soon, like Venom 3. I don't know they had planned on releasing that next summer.
Yeah, just a few months after, Deadpool 3, which was the soonest movie that was going to come out that got pushed back. I don't know what is now going to open the summer movie season. I don't know if anything's going to take that May 3rd place. Something will. obviously, but it would have been nice to have Deadpool there. These delays are like all too common now ever since the days of COVID. And I guess even before that, these things get delayed all the time. It's just always difficult to report on. It just means that I'm going to be that much older when I do finally get around to seeing the movie,
Yeah, you're going to be like 40 fucking years old.
Almost. Jeez, almost. I'm not even thinking about 2025 right now. The days are long, the years are short. Hopefully, these movies will be with us before we know it.
I think the biggest downer regarding this news is just that this phase bore of Marvel that it's going through is just going to go on longer, Like, get to Secret Wars already. Restart this shit.
Why don't you shut the hell up? We are no longer in phase 4. We are in phase 5. You don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Phase 5? More like phase... I got nothing. More like phase dive. Or die.
That's
die.
stupid.
Phase die. That's better.
No, that doesn't work. Try again. Try again some other time.
All right. I guess DC did have one delay. Creature Commandos was supposed to come out in 2024, but I guess that may get pushed back to 2025. I'm not sure if that's official yet, but that's the rumor. But in other DC television news, we got to our first official teaser for the Deadboy Detectives, which is going to premiere on Netflix. Originally, this was a show that was going to be made for Max, but since it was not within the vision of James Gunn and Peter Safran's new DC universe, they pushed it to Netflix, and they're making it a part of the same universe as the Sandman series, because the Deadboy Detectives were written by Neil Gaiman and they first debuted within the Sandman comic. So it makes sense. I'm actually happy that it's going to be in the same universe as the Sandman, because the Sandman was freaking amazing. I loved that series. I can't wait for season 2. And I think the Deadboy Detectives will be a good holdover until we get that second season. Of course, if you've been watching the Doom Patrol, you're very familiar with the Deadboy Detectives. They appeared in season 2 of that show. And I actually really liked that episode. I thought they did a really good job of interpreting the Deadboy Detectives for the screen. I was hoping that they were going to stick with the same cast of characters, and that may have been the original plan, but it looks like they went a different route for this Netflix show.
Yeah, I knew nothing about the Deadboy Detectives prior to that episode on Doom Patrol Season 2. I thought they were actually really compelling characters watching that episode. But after watching this trailer, I think the opposite. This trailer sucked.
It definitely had a vibe of its own that really didn't make it feel like it was set in the same world as Sandman. It still feels quite a bit like Doom Patrol, and I feel like this may almost be like a replacement for that show's wackiness now that the Doom Patrol is coming to an end with its 4th and final season. I can't say I really cared too much for the actors they chose for Charles and Edwin this time. But again, this is just a teaser. It's a short one. It's only 1 minute and 20 seconds long. So maybe I'm judging prematurely. We'll see.
I guess my major gripe is that on Doom Patrol, the characters look like how they do in the comic books, because I looked up what they look like in the comic books. One's blonde, one's brunette. They have very different vibes going on. But literally, the actors who play the Deadboy Detectives in this Netflix series could be twins. They look so much alike in their faces, and it throws me off.
No, that's fair. I actually thought the very same thing the first time I saw this. I was like, wait, which one is Charles? Which one is Edwin? They look way too similar to be in the same fucking show together. That's really bad casting. I also didn't care for the casting of Crystal Palace either. Maybe it was just because she said that the name Deadboy Detectives was stupid, and I was like, fuck you. No, it's not.
Obviously, it's the coolest name ever. The entire premise is right there in the title, just like something like RoboCop, It's a great name.
Exactly. Right. Plus, I think it's bad form just to do that in the teaser for the show, where you're supposed to be getting people pumped up about it, and a character within the series is like, oh yeah, this is dumb. Like, don't do that.
Yeah, it doesn't do a great job of actually selling the show, right?
Not at all. What does do a good job of selling the show is sort of seeing like the ghost aspects of the characters, like when they run through walls and stuff like that. That's going to be interesting. And, the premise that they're running from death is also pretty interesting. Although I wonder if they're going to go with death from Sandman in this series. If it's part of the Sandman universe, they kind of need to.
Right. Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, we know that Death was played by Kirby Howell-Baptiste in the Sandman series. If they go with someone else, then that likely means that this show is not actually in the Sandman series continuity, right?
Right, exactly. We'll see who they go with. They do mention during the teaser that this is not only part of the Sandman universe, but also brought to you from the producers of You and The Flight Attendant, which are both fantastic shows. So I think that bodes really well for the series.
Allegedly fantastic. I've never seen either of them.
They're good. I've seen both of them. They're great.
I don't know if we're going to be reviewing the series. We'll talk to the executive producers about it, and we'll let you guys know, I guess, as we get closer to the show's release date.
Yeah, we don't actually have a release date for the series yet, but I'm guessing it's coming sometime early 2024. But in regards to this show of characters set within the Sandman universe, that brings us to our question of the week. What other characters from the Sandman universe do you hope get their own series on Netflix?
Record your answer at dynamicduel.com by clicking on the red microphone button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, which will prompt you to leave us a voicemail. Your message could be up to 30 seconds long, and don't forget to leave your name in case we include you on the podcast. We'll pick our favorite answer and award that person a Dynamic Duel No Prize that we'll post to Instagram and our email newsletter. Be sure to answer before November 25th. This question of the week is actually running a little bit longer because there won't be a question of the week in the next episode, considering Jonathan is traveling for work.
Right.
So November 25th, that's your cutoff date for this question.
That gives everyone plenty of time to read all of the Sandman comic books, which you should have done already because they're fantastic, and come up with some character ideas.
But that does it for all the news for this episode, so let's go ahead and move on to the main event, where we review the latest Marvel Studios theatrical release, The Marvels. Alright, The Marvels came out this past week, directed and co-written by Nia DaCosta and starring Brie Larson, Teyonah Parris, and Iman Vellani. The film is a sequel to the 2019 film Captain Marvel, also starring Brie Larson as the titular character. But you could also say The Marvels is a sequel to the Secret Invasion Disney Plus television series, the WandaVision series, and the Ms. Marvel series. This movie follows up a lot of other stories, and if you're asking if it's necessary to have seen all of these shows before watching the film, I'm gonna say kind of. You could probably skip Secret Invasion, but to really feel like you're not just jumping into the middle of a story, it's probably better to have seen the rest of the shows. That being said, this review is a spoiler review for The Marvels, but will probably also be dropping plot points from everything else that the movie follows. So here's your spoiler warning for the other stuff too. Again, WandaVision, Secret Invasion, and Ms. Marvel.
Yeah, you got a lot of homework if you haven't been keeping up with the MCU recently.
Yeah, I'm not going to say the movie is impossible to follow if you haven't seen this other stuff, but I think you'll actually get a lot more enjoyment out of it if you do. Kind of like a lot of Marvel's other stuff that's heavily steeped in continuity, right? But the number of projects that this film follows is kind of the film's main downfall, is it not? Like, tonally, The Marvels tries to be as cohesive as it can, but, you know, like the juvenile, humorous world of Ms. Marvel is much different than like the scientific, sort of odd background of Monica Rambeau's story in WandaVision, which was different than the kind of cosmic level adventures of Captain Marvel. You know, I won't say that the film fails in wrangling this all together in one package. I actually think that Nia DaCosta did an admirable job of compiling it all in one tone. But in terms of story, editing, and overall pace, I'd say the film wasn't as successful. And this is like exacerbated by the fact that, you know, the story of the movie involves these characters jumping around and teleporting all over the place from one corner of the galaxy to the other. So it really gives you this whiplash feeling that never really leaves. Like even later on in the movie, I blinked and suddenly the Marvels were in some sort of like wheat field planet talking in one moment, and in the next they're like across the universe toward Earth. Between the actual swapping of the characters, the space jumping, like warp points factoring heavily into the story, and all the references to backstories that hopefully people have seen, you know, the story can feel like a lot to keep up with. And this is coming from me, a guy who I think has a pretty good handle on the MCU as a whole. I can't imagine how people who come into this movie fresh will react. You know, it can't be easy.
Yeah, I honestly was wondering as I was watching the movie in the theater how many audience members had seen everything and if any of them were lost. My wife certainly was. My daughters certainly were.
Well, that's because you're raising a DC household and you need to be exposing them to more Marvel stuff, I think, for, their own health.
No, they watched Loki with me. They actually liked Loki. They watched WandaVision, I believe. But it was so long ago that they really didn't remember much about it.
Mm-hmm. I think the biggest detriment to the film in regards to all of this was the editing moves at a breakneck pace, way too fast, I think, for its own good. The movie has the shortest runtime out of any Marvel Studios movie to date at just 1 hour and 45 minutes. I think if you clocked that up closer to 2 hours, you would have had a much more cohesive, understandable narrative that felt less bonkers.
Yeah, I definitely think there was a lot of room to explore a lot of things that they really just brushed over, like Kamala Khan's eagerness to save Skrulls and the realization that her hero was, a real person, despite all of her power, couldn't save everyone. I think they really could have explored that more. I think they really could have set up the film's villain a little bit more, maybe with even a pre-title sequence to the story, showing what they alluded to later on in the film of Captain Marvel destroying the Supreme Intelligence and things like that.
Yeah, particularly when it came to the villain of the movie, Dar-Ben, a lot of her actions and motivations were explained in retrospect, right? We had no idea what was going on with the jump points until the three Marvels ladies figured it out. We didn't know what was happening. We didn't know why she was doing all of this until we learned about the current state of Hala and how it got that way. The movie just didn't do any favors for itself in terms of how it structured the narrative, how it edited it, and the pacing.
Honestly, this film is sort of exactly what I feel like a lot of audience members are tired of when it comes to MCU films. It just feels like it's just too much to keep up with and it's a jumbled mess. I think this film is actually going to hurt Marvel down the line in terms of, are people going to be interested in future MCU films or just feel like there's just too much homework?
It's a valid concern. I don't think the movie is going to hurt the overall brand because all that being said regarding the film's messy structure, I actually had a lot of fun with the movie, more so than other recent Marvel films like Ant-Man Quantumania and Guardians of the Galaxy 3, though I will definitely say that Guardians 3 was a better movie. A more somber movie that had some really sad moments, but obviously still a better movie. The Marvels was like a bubblegum sort of film whose only concern was to deliver a fun time, right? And in that regard, I think it succeeded. The action choreography was top notch. We saw some of the best camera work since the fight scene in the first Doctor Strange movie that happened in Hong Kong where everything was going backwards. I think the stunt team had the work cut out for them, and the opening action scene where it was going between the three ladies at the Khan home, out in space, and on the Saber space station is probably some of the coolest stuff you'll ever see from Marvel Studios. The swapping gimmick was a great way to present superhero action in a new and interesting way.
Although I'm still confused how that was set up. So essentially, their powers became entangled because Captain Marvel and Monica Rambeau were near a jump point at the same time, and Kamala Khan is using one half of the quantum band that caused all the chaos to begin with.
Oh, I mean, that's all bullshit. The science reasoning behind the swapping, I think, is one of the flimsiest things about the film.
Okay, good. It's not just me then.
Right. Monica Rambeau rationalized it as quantum entanglement, but they already used quantum entanglement in the Ant-Man and the Wasp movie, right? And in that movie, it was a way for Michelle Pfeiffer's Janet Van Dyne character to communicate telepathically through Scott Lang's character. But here, it's a physical teleportation. So apparently, quantum entanglement can result in all sort of manner of effects in the MCU. But, it's hard to be nitpicky about that because the whole nature of superheroes in general requires a suspension of disbelief. And the end result of the swapping itself is fun enough that you don't really want to question it, even though it all makes no sense. But again, that's kind of like another thing that just adds to the sort of messy feel to the film, right? One of the best things I could say about the movie overall is that I walked out of the movie theater more excited for the future of the MCU than any movie since Spider-Man No Way Home. And that's largely because of, how the movie ended, the end scene, as well as the mid-credit scene. Those scenes alone almost raised this rating up a half a star because they were fantastic. I loved how Ms. Marvel was inspired by her team up and took the initiative to start recruiting a young Avengers team. We've been waiting for that for years now, and it was cool to see that finally take effect, especially since she did it the exact same way that Nick Fury did in the first Iron Man movie, almost line for line, but with her own comedic twist. Thought that was great. Seeing Beast in his true form on screen for the first time gives me so much hope for the future of the X-Men and how they are portrayed on screen. It's going to be hopefully so comic book accurate just based on the look of Hank McCoy, voiced by Kelsey Grammer from X-Men The Last Stand.
Honestly,
Get out of here. Don't even start. What are you going to say?
I mean,
It's
like,
stupid.
we've already seen someone from the X-Men universe in a Marvel movie, in the whole Multiverse of Madness film. We've already seen Hawkeye. I don't get, like, all the hype over these scenes. I mean, it's like big whoop. It's just more of
You
the
get
same.
outta
They've
here
been
with your
building to
big
this
whoop.
for how long? And it's like, okay, now that we get a little morsel more, how about you just flip the switch and do it already?
They got to build up, man. They're building anticipation. Yeah, we've seen Professor X before, and it was cool that he was in his yellow chair, but largely Professor X manifested in an expected way, portrayed by Patrick Stewart. But this version of Beast wasn't just like, Kelsey Grammer in horrible prosthetics like it was in X-Men The Last Stand, or in X-Men First Class with Nicholas Hoult, or in Days of Future Past. Like, all that shit was horrible looking. Like, this Beast in this movie was perfection. It was perfection.
Are you really that excited over an underfight?
Yes.
Holy shit.
Yes.
All right.
That's right. That's right. I am that excited. It's going to be great. I can't wait.
I guess Binary was cool. That was cool.
Yeah, it was cool that they included Binary here. Binary being one of the many aliases that Carol Danvers has used over the years. It was interesting to see Maria Rambeau take over that role. And, she was actually Captain Marvel herself in the Multiverse of Madness movie. So there apparently are like a lot of universes out there where Maria was the one that took the fighter jet and had the Lightspeed Engine Cosmic Cube incident from the Captain Marvel movie. But speaking of things that I enjoyed about the movie, one of the things I most enjoyed were the characters. So let's go ahead and talk more about them in our character breakdown. Starting with Captain Marvel, aka Carol Danvers, played by Brie Larson. Brie Larson did her best work as the character in this movie. She wasn't annoying like she was in Avengers Endgame, and she wasn't a robot like she was for most of the first Captain Marvel movie. I feel like the character finally got to shine and be herself in the Marvels, which I think is fantastic, because while I'll admit that Brie Larson isn't perfect for the role, I am rooting for her as Carol Danvers, because I think there's potential there.
I do think there's potential. I don't think this film was her best work. I thought she conveyed more emotion in some of her many post-credit scenes, when she's talking to like Shang-Chi or something like that.
Yeah.
If this is Captain Marvel being her true self, then her true self is boring as fuck.
You're boring as fuck. You know what the fuck you're talking about. What are you talking about? What do you mean boring?
Dude, yeah, she was
fine.
like the least interesting character in the whole damn movie.
I disagree with that statement. Obviously, the villain was the least interesting character.
I mean, they were like the same.
I like how in the film, she went from a guilt-ridden loner to rediscovering her more personable, likable side through this new sisterhood that gets established. I think Monica and Kamala helped her become this lighter character that maybe we can see more of if Brie Larson returns to the role. Not only did she grow emotionally, I think, in this movie, I think the plot device of having her swap places with less experienced heroes and kind of keep her on the back foot in that regard, it made her more vulnerable and humble and more interesting of a character, because Captain Marvel was, too overpowered from the get-go. The swapping definitely helped alleviate that.
I also thought that as I was watching it, because you're right. She's billed as Marvel's most powerful character. She freaking tanked a headbutt from freaking Thanos, in Endgame, right? So yeah, I thought this actually was a smart way to sort of not degrade her power, but make it so that she can't just solve everything so easily.
Right, exactly. Which, was kind of a criticism of the first Captain Marvel movie, is that once she unlocked the full potential of her powers, she was essentially unstoppable, right? The way they chose to go about fixing that worked really well in an exciting way.
I do think there were some things they inserted in this movie to make Brie Larson more interesting as Captain Marvel that didn't quite work. Specifically, the whole fucking singing planet.
Yeah, my theory is that they were kind of going for like a Disney princess angle with Planet Aladna and her princess role on that planet. She even got like a dress and everything like that. I do have to say, I really liked her costume in this movie more than in the Captain Marvel film. I thought it was really well done. I liked her dress too, The Captain Marvel take on the dress worked really well. I think a lot of girls will appreciate the fashion choices made in this movie. But if we're talking about the musical scene in general, I mean, it was a joke, right? It was played for laughs more than anything else, which felt unnecessary because of that.
I mean, if it was a joke that went on for way too long.
Not really. Come on. It was like 2 minutes.
I don't know, I was just watching it. I looked at my wife and I was like, what the fuck is this?
You know, it's going to be a joke that's going to go on for 2 hours. Joker Folie à Deux.
Oh shit, I can't say anything, can I?
That's right. Joker Folie à Deux is going to be a musical in its entirety. So,
but it's going to be a good one. You know?
Right, okay. Let's go ahead and move on to Photon, aka Monica Rambeau, played by Teyonah Parris. Now, I call her Photon only because the movie never really settled on a superhero name for her, which was kind of frustrating. Like, Ms. Marvel even named a few of her aliases from the comics that she's had, including Spectrum and Pulsar. Of course, Monica was the original female Captain Marvel, but right now she's going by Photon in the comics, which is my favorite name for her, and I wish they would have brought that up in the film. But Teyonah Parris, I think she's a more than capable actor. I think she did a good job of selling like the deep-seated resentment she had toward Carol for not returning like she said she would. I think Teyonah did a great job with the action. And I thought she had some funny moments too. She's really good with her line delivery.
Yeah, I thought she was fantastic. I have like nothing bad to say about her. It was a great performance. I think she's definitely, you know, Avengers caliber material for whenever they make the next Avengers film. She hopefully is on that team.
Yeah, she has a great power set for that team too. Although for like the average viewer, I feel like her power set isn't as well defined as I would like it. You know, in the movie, she says that she can see light, if I remember correctly. But I'm like, that's not really it. Her power is that she can emit and become and absorb any form of energy on the electromagnetic spectrum. You know, from X-rays to visible light to electricity to ultraviolet and infrared light. You know, I like to see the MCU actually explicitly state her powers as that, because I think it would help audiences understand the character more.
That's actually very true. I was really wondering like what the differences were between her and Carol Danvers, like laser powers. Like the scene where Carol is surprised that Monica was able to shoot a laser to like solve this problem on the ship. I was like, well, couldn't you have done that? Like, why did you need her help to do this at all?
Yeah.
And the last bit where she sacrifices herself, I don't know what the fuck happened there.
She absorbed all that energy from the quantum bands and the photonic energy from Captain Marvel in order to have enough power to seal the rift. But I think you're right in that they didn't explain that very well. Like, it was a bunch of scientific mumbo jumbo on behalf of Monica Rambeau's part. I don't envy the actress at all for all the science flux capacitor shit she had to say in this movie.
I did love Monica Rambeau's outfit, though. I thought she had the best one.
Yeah, I mean, essentially it was just a Sabre space station uniform, but yeah, it looks really cool. The whites and blacks just popped for some reason. Let's go to move on to Miss Marvel, aka Kamala Khan, who's played by Iman Vellani. I really liked Iman Vellani as Kamala Khan in the Miss Marvel television series. I think that was a fantastic debut for this up-and-coming actress, and I really liked her in this movie. You know, in many ways, she was the heart of the film and the glue that really brought the team together in such, you know, an innocent way, born out of just the love and admiration she had for these other women.
Yeah, no, I agree. She was my favorite part of the whole movie. Like, to me, I think she was the star.
I assumed that she would get a little bit grating based on her appearances in the trailers, but I found myself not bothered by that too much. Maybe there were a few moments where she was a little bit overexcited, but considering the circumstances, I think she kind of played it true to what the character would do.
No, the actress is just so endearing. My daughter, Grace, who's 12 years old, she loved Miss Marvel.
Yeah.
That was hands down her favorite of the three.
I think it was a lot of people's favorite for sure. And she had some great moments. I like the moment with the revelation about Carol visiting Monica's mom, Maria, after Monica was blipped. When Kamala hugged Monica and then when Carol joined, it was the turning point for the team. It's when they became a team. It was cool to see that. It was cool seeing her prove herself and achieve her dream, going from an obscure Jersey City hero to a legit superhero. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I definitely think that she was a good foil in a way for Captain Marvel, in that Captain Marvel is a pretty cold character, at least the way Brie Larson plays her. And Iman Vellani definitely is not. You're right. She just has this exuberance and innocence and excitement about her that just makes people like the character.
I would say that Brie Larson's semi-cold depiction of Carol Danvers is not without basis in the comics. Carol Danvers in the comics is fairly straightforward.
AKA boring AF.
Some of my favorite moments with Ms. Marvel dealt with her awkwardness. You know, like how her vision of her going twinsies with Captain Marvel didn't quite play out like she thought it would. She just brought a lot of humor to the film.
Yeah, like when we reviewed Ms. Marvel, the show, I think I mentioned during that review that I liked that series way more than I thought I would. And I was really glad to see that her personality survived intact for this movie. Although I gotta say, her family didn't translate quite as well in the movie as it did in the show.
I would agree with that, totally. Actually, a lot of the side characters in this movie felt like they were television extras, right? Including Kamala Khan's family, including the extras on the Saber space station. They just felt out of place.
Right, yeah. Like, I still don't get why Kamala's family had to even go up to the space station.
Well, their home was destroyed, but you're right. That doesn't necessarily mean they have to go to a space station.
Like, go to a fucking hotel or something.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
And, like, why didn't they get eaten by cats when everyone else did? Like, probably people who are more important and necessary to the critical function of the space station and everything.
That's a valid point. They had special privileges, I guess. Regarding Ms. Marvel, though, a really interesting question came up while I was watching the movie. So, in the Ms. Marvel TV series, you and I theorized that the bangle that Ms. Marvel received that unlocked her powers was a Kree negaband, which in the comics were the weapons worn by the original Captain Marvel. And we ended up not being too far off because the bangle actually turned out to be a quantum band. And the negabands were the Kree's attempt to recreate the quantum bands in the comics. But the quantum bands are worn by the hero Quasar, who has the power of energy construct generation, similar to Green Lantern, which is why we pit Quasar in a duel against Green Lantern on this podcast. But I'm wondering, is Ms. Marvel, with her energy construct generation powers, the MCU's version of Quasar?
I mean, I think she has to be right now, right? Not only does she have Green Lantern powers, she has the literal quantum bands. Although I guess Carol had one of them at the end as well. I'm not sure why. They were like friendship bracelets now or something.
Yeah, they never really got into that. I guess they just assumed it was better to keep the quantum bands separate from each other. But now I totally think of Ms. Marvel as Quasar.
Which, like, how do you feel about that?
Not great. I think a lot of people had issues with the depiction of Ms. Marvel's powers translating from the comics to the screen. You know, in the comics, Ms. Marvel is a polymorph. She can stretch. But in the show, it's her energy construct form that stretches, which is certainly easier to render using special effects than showing her physical body stretching. But having her generate these sapphire-looking constructs isn't true to the comics, right? Neither is her being Quasar. At the end of the day, I think the more true things are to the comics, the better.
Although I guess the one argument you can make that she's not the MCU's Quasar is that her powers aren't derived from the quantum bands.
That's true. I mean, they only unlocked her powers, but in the MCU, Ms. Marvel is a mutant. But that's another thing, because in the comics, Ms. Marvel is an inhuman. So I don't know. It's all strange, but it did fascinate me to think that we have witnessed the MCU's first iteration of the character of Quasar. Let's go to move on to Supremor, aka Dar-Benn, played by Zawe Ashton. I'll start off by saying Zawe Ashton wasn't the total train wreck I thought she'd be based on the trailers for this movie. She wasn't as goofy as I thought she would be. I think her character had legit motivations for the destruction she caused and for her hatred of Captain Marvel. I think honestly the worst thing you could say about the character is that she was generic AF. Yeah, but I partially blame that on the fact that, like I said earlier, the character of Dar-Benn was only in 8 issues of the comics back in the early 90s. Like, we're talking bottom of the F-list barrel here. And so there wasn't much characterization to build off of from the source material. I don't really understand why Marvel Studios would do that, why they would make Dar-Benn the villain when there were so many other Kree characters they could have gone with.
Yeah, for sure. Like, bring back Jude Law, go with Jaimin Hansu. Why not?
Well, Jaimin Hansu was killed in the first Guardians movie as Korath.
Bring back Jude Law?
As Yonrog? Yeah. Although, they called the character of Dar-Benn Supremor in this movie. That was like her title. I'm wondering why they just couldn't make the villain of the movie Supremor from the comics, who is an android personification of the Supreme Intelligence and is really well known among Marvel Comics fans as the de facto ruler of the Kree. Supremor is a badass. Like I think a better scenario for this movie would have been that the Supreme Intelligence actually wasn't destroyed by Carol. And during the time it took for it to reboot itself, the Kree have their civil war and the devastation. And then once Supremo reboots and then tries to restore Hala to its former glory. Like, wouldn't that have been a better angle considering they already did some setup for the Supreme Intelligence in the first Captain Marvel movie with Annette Bening playing the character?
Yeah, absolutely.
I really like Supremor as a villain in the comics. Dar-Ben is not Supremor. One of these days we'll get Supremor in a dual episode.
Yeah, maybe we could put Supremor up against like Brother Eye or something like that. Eradicator. I don't know anything
That
about
could
Supremor.
work. That could work.
I do have to say that I was really confused by Dar-Ben's use of the Ronin hammer. Like, it glowed purple as if it was powered by the Infinity Stone, but it wasn't.
Yeah, that was kind of a bad visual effects call, right? So Ronin's hammer is called the ultimate weapon, as you know from our Ronin the Accuser versus Big Barda duel episode that we did.
Right.
I thought it was interesting how she paired it with the quantum bands. I think the fact that she had the quantum bands in this movie was a great way to foil the energy-based powers of the Marvel's characters, because what the quantum bands can do in the comics is tap into any power source in the entire universe. So the fact that she was absorbing all of their energy blasts with the quantum band made her a great threat to the heroes. Let's go ahead and move on to the final character in our character breakdown, Nick Fury, played by Samuel L. Jackson. As always, Sam Jackson defines the character of Nick Fury. He is Nick Fury, but this Nick Fury was far more laid back in this movie than I thought he'd be, considering the events of Secret Invasion. At the end of that show, he and his wife Vara went up into the Saber space station to begin negotiating peace talks between the Kree and the Skrulls, but things were left semi-unresolved at the end of that show, and you never get that sense here.
No, yeah, absolutely. Like, I thought that his wife would have been a character in this movie as a Skrull, since they were dealing with Skrulls in this movie. But
Right.
Nope. It really just goes to show that, like, Kevin Feige isn't in control of everything in the way that we thought he was, at least not in this new multiversal saga. There's just more and more evidence for it.
It does seem like he's taking a few more vacations than he should be, right?
Yeah, what the heck?
Also, like, Nick Fury's guilt that he couldn't find the Skrulls a home was such a central theme of the Secret Invasion television show, and yet the Skrulls' refuge on the planet Tarnax in this movie seemed pretty good, right? Like, couldn't that be the Skrulls' home? Why couldn't that be their home? What was the story with planet Tarnax? We'll never know.
For real, like, that's what I was wondering during this movie. Like, why did all of the Skrulls have to come to Earth in Secret Invasion? Why couldn't they go to that planet?
Yeah, it's a great question. But that does for all the characters. Let's go ahead and move into the story highlights. Hey guys, it's Marvelous Joe here to remind everyone that the holidays are approaching, and now is the time to start getting gifts for the friends and family in your life. And if you're gonna shop for something cool and meaningful, you may as well do it at the best deal you can, right? That's why Dynamic Duel has teamed up again with cufflinks.com to get you 20% off everything in the entire site using the code DUEL20 at checkout. We've partnered with cufflinks.com before because they're awesome. You know, the best way to describe them is like take geek culture and then make it fashion. They have a plethora of Marvel and DC men's accessories to choose from that let you rep your fandom and still look like $1 million. Take, for instance, this Iron Man cuff bracelet I got from the site. Honestly, I never even knew what a cuff bracelet was before I got it. I've never worn a bracelet in my life, but if you go to the site using the link in our show notes, you'll see how badass this Iron Man cuff bracelet is. It's just like something Tony Stark would wear. It has a black plated gunmetal base with gold Iron Man helmet accents on the ends. It has a super sleek modern design, and now you pretty much won't catch me without it. So go to cufflinks.com, check out their Marvel and DC stuff, or, Star Wars, Harry Potter, they have it all, and shop for the holidays using code DUEL20 at checkout. I promise you, it'll be the coolest site you visit all season. Thanks, guys. Alright, a group of Kree soldiers led by Supremor Dar-Ben discover the missing quantum band on a barren planet in space. Wondering where the other one is, we see it on Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, who fantasizes about meeting her hero, Captain Marvel. I thought it was a great intro to the character of Miss Marvel. That little animated segment they had with her did a great job of setting up the backstory as well as establishing the type of character she is.
Yeah, I definitely think they did a great job setting up Miss Marvel. Definitely better than they did setting up Monica Rambeau for anyone who hadn't seen WandaVision. But again, I still think the whole beginning of this movie should have been the scene of Captain Marvel destroying the Supreme Intelligence.
Right, yeah, to provide that context for the story as a whole.
Because this whole time we'd been wondering, like, what the heck is Captain Marvel doing out in space? Like, she's never on Earth to help out. And it turns out, she's going to singing planets and she's fucking up shit on Hala. Apparently too busy to reignite their damn sun.
Apparently. What do you think of that reasoning for Miss Marvel's absence in general?
I thought it was super lame. I did not care for it.
I thought it was okay. I mean, the fact that she had great reason to be angry at the Supreme Intelligence and destroy it and allegedly free the people of Hala and then kind of be mopey about it when the entire planet went into chaos is kind of a big deal. I think it was kind of a satisfying answer.
Yeah, but she wasn't just being mopey about it. She was going off and, singing, being a princess. She had to be doing more than just being mopey. She should have gone back and, taken care of her niece.
That's true, which is, the whole reason for Monica's resentment. But, Captain Marvel isn't perfect. I think they established that. I think it makes her a little bit more human. When the jump point above Earth starts going haywire near the Sabre space station, Nick Fury has Sword agent Monica Rambeau investigate, while he and Captain Marvel track the source of the anomaly to the planet where Supreme War found the lost quantum band. The two women make contact with the haywire jump point energy simultaneously, which causes them and Ms. Marvel all to swap places through teleportation. Now, I know we discussed the whole nature of the swapping thing is kind of bullshit, but I also have questions like if Ms. Marvel was included in the three-way swap because it was the quantum band energy that created and then disrupted the jump point, why wasn't Darbin also included in their swap circle? She had the other quantum band.
That's a great question. That's a fantastic question.
I'm kind of dissatisfied with the reasoning behind the swap, even though I was satisfied with the effect it had on the film's action. The three women struggle to come to terms with their predicament as a fight with Kree soldiers ensues in space, on the Sabre space station, and in the Khan family home. When the fight is over and the three return to the original places, Monica and Fury visit Ms. Marvel to discuss Monica's theory on quantum entanglement, which is causing them to switch places anytime they use their powers simultaneously. I think I mentioned before I loved this action scene. I actually really got into it. I liked seeing how all three of them kicked ass in their own unique ways, especially Ms. Marvel. I thought it was exciting to see her really come into her own as a warrior.
Yeah, I definitely think she had the most interesting power of the three, and I was always excited to see how she was going to use it next.
Yeah, for sure. As Captain Marvel investigates peace talks between the Kree and Skrull empires near a Skrull refuge on planet Tarnax, she inadvertently swaps places with Monica and Ms. Marvel. Convinced the talks are a trap due to Captain Marvel's presence, Dar-Ben generates a jump point anomaly using her quantum band paired with the universal weapon that creates a vacuum that sucks up the planet's atmosphere and destroys the Skrull refuge. The three women save as many Skrulls as they can, arranging for them to live on New Asgard, led by Valkyrie on Earth. This was a surprise. I didn't know Valkyrie was going to make a cameo.
Yeah, between Valkyrie's cameo and Hawkeye's, this is almost like an A-Force film.
Yeah, that's kind of true. Question, though. In Secret Invasion, weren't the Skrulls and all alien species on Earth deemed hostile by President Ritson? Like, New Asgard on Earth is not going to be a safe place for the Skrulls. Also, I want to know how New Asgard got control of the Bifrost teleportation energy.
That's right, wasn't it destroyed?
The Bifrost was destroyed. The only thing that can wield the Bifrost now is Thor's hammer Stormbreaker, which is actually currently being wielded by Thor's daughter, which is still a stupid concept.
Oh, Love? Ugh, yeah. I'd already forgotten about her. Why'd you remind me?
Maybe she's dead and Thor gave Stormbreaker to New Asgard and they can use it to teleport now.
Damn.
Captain Marvel, Monica, and Ms. Marvel deduce that it was Dar-Ben's rupturing of the jump points that led to their quantum entanglement, and that the jump point instability is endangering the universe, and that Dar-Ben is creating the anomalies to bring resources to the devastated Kree homeworld of Hala. The Marvels use Skrull memory probe technology to find Dar-Ben's next target, and they train using their abilities in conjunction with their swapping predicament. I really liked the training montage. I thought that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree. It was well done. It was cool.
The jump rope thing I thought was pretty creative and funny.
Yeah, the whole training montage I thought was sufficiently girly for the audience.
Yeah, girly and fun. I liked it. The Marvels travel to the planet Aladna to warn them of Dar-Ben's imminent arrival, and it's revealed that Captain Marvel is actually the princess there. The three fight the Kree forces in an attempt to steal the villain's quantum band, but Dar-Ben discovers that Ms. Marvel has the other quantum band and creates a jump point anomaly that siphons the planet's water. We already talked about the musical scene. It was meant to be a joke, but probably an unnecessary one. They were just trying to be cute. I did like the conversation between Monica and Kamala Khan as this was all happening, and they're just kind of commenting on the ridiculousness of it all. But my favorite joke in the whole movie actually also happens during the scene, during the fight with Dar-Ben, when the villain sees that Kamala has the other quantum band, and she's like, "Where did you get that?" And Kamala was like, "My grandma sent it to me in the mail." I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, I laughed at that too. That was good. That's the kind of humor I like from Marvel movies, not the freaking sing-along.
Yeah, yeah.
Which, again, I guess I can't really say anything about because of Joker Folly I Do. So scratch I said that. I love all the singing. It's great.
Captain Marvel, Miss Marvel, and Monica escape the Kree forces, and Carol reveals that she was the one who caused the devastation on Hala when she destroyed the Supreme Intelligence. She figures that Dar-Ben is also acting out of revenge against her, destroying the places she holds dear. They travel to Earth to discover Dar-Ben is attempting to steal the energy from the sun next. When we got the flashback scene when Captain Marvel destroyed the Supreme Intelligence, I was trying to figure out when she did that chronologically within the MCU timeline. Like, I think it had to have happened sometime after the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, right? Because like the Kree didn't seem like they were in shambles there, and they made the peace treaty with Xandar and the Nova Corps.
Yeah.
Or maybe they signed the treaty because the planet was kind of going into shambles and they didn't have adequate resources to fight the Nova War anymore. But I do wonder, maybe it happened post Avengers Endgame. Who knows?
I don't know.
It would have been nice for them to answer that question, though.
The whole MCU timeline is messed up anyway. It's broken.
Why?
Ever since the
Just
first
because you
Spider-Man
don't know
movie. You're right. No one does.
I know it. I know, except for this scene. I have no idea when this happened. That's the only thing. Captain Marvel, Miss Marvel, and Monica fight Dar-Ben and subdue her, but the villain manages to steal Kamala's quantum band. Meanwhile, the unstable jump point near Earth damages a majority of the Saber space station's escape pods, forcing the station's crew to escape to Earth's surface by being swallowed by flirking kittens that were laid by Goose. I loved the flirking kittens. You know, they didn't have much to do with the story overall, but they were cute, and the way they were incorporated into the plot made me laugh. So, there you go.
I thought it was super effing random. It was like super convenient as well. I hated everything about that.
You're just a sad, bitter person, old man.
Well, why? Because I don't like flirkins?
Because you don't like cute things, like kittens, swallowing people alive. That shit's funny. I wonder if a lot of people are confused in that when flirkins eat things, they actually store it within a pocket dimension inside of them. Like each flirkin has a little black hole in their body. They don't necessarily ingest it, which is why Goose was able to bring back the Cosmic Cube after she had swallowed it in the first Captain Marvel movie.
The only thing I found really funny about the flirkins was when Goose was like cleaning himself and Nick Fury was like, "Hey, stop that." And Goose was just like staring at him evilly, like mid-lick. I was like, yeah, that's a cat. That's my cat.
I like the flirkin eggs, just the concept of like a cat-like creature laying eggs. I thought was funny. My least favorite part of the whole movie happens during the scene when the escape pod carrying the Khan family and Nick Fury crashes onto Earth after falling from fucking space. It literally crashes into the planet and no one was hurt.
The water was right there. They could have landed in the water.
Right.
So dumb. I saw that and I was like, fucking Marvel.
Whatever. Shut up. After being mortally wounded, Dar-Ben destroys herself by using the two quantum bands to open a rift in space to another reality. Monica reasons that absorbing the energy from Captain Marvel and the quantum bands will let her seal the rift, and she gets stranded in the other reality despite Captain Marvel trying to save her.
Can I just say that I thought it was a cool element that the quantum bands were what created all the jump points throughout the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
Yeah, that was really cool. And totally makes sense because Quasar is able to jump through space using the quantum bands in a manner similar to the jump points in the Marvel Universe. The jump points themselves were always this unique things that made their first appearance in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, but had no basis in the source material. You know, they were just something that was out there that they ran with in subsequent spacefaring movies in the MCU.
Right.
But to kind of get their origin now and kind of get an explanation of what the hell these things are, where they came from, I thought was pretty neat.
Yeah, honestly, that's probably like my favorite element of the entire movie was just that single line that solidified that in canon. I was like, dope, that's cool.
Yeah, I'm just a fan of the quantum bands in general from the comics. They're cool. It was kind of a bummer that Darben got mortally wounded because we didn't really get to see her do much with the quantum bands. But, tearing a rift in space and time is a pretty epic way to go out.
I do have a quick question. What was it that removed the quantum entanglement exactly?
It was the fact that they got a hold of both quantum bands, I think. Don't ask me how. I don't understand the whole swapping thing anyway.
All right. Yeah, it just, confirmed my theory that it was all bullshit.
Captain Marvel travels to Hala and reignites its sun, restoring the planet to full habitability, and Ms. Marvel starts recruiting a Young Avengers team, starting with Kate Bishop.
Were you as upset as I was that Captain Marvel didn't think to reignite Hala's sun on her own?
Well, yeah, it was kind of like a selfless idea on Monica Rambeau's part that you would have hoped a hero like Carol Danvers would have had on her own. Yeah.
It didn't take much effort at all. Like, she was perfectly fine afterward.
Yeah, she should have done it a long time ago. It was cool to see Haley Steinfeld in this last scene.
Yeah, I think I mentioned during our Hawkeye review, or maybe it was Miss Marvel, that the female Hawkeye and Miss Marvel's personalities were very similar to each other. So I was kind of concerned about how that would play out in something like a Young Avengers film or series. But seeing the two characters quip back and forth was actually done pretty well, I thought.
Yeah. I can't wait for them to announce the Young Avengers project whenever they get around to it. Maybe they won't show up until the next Avengers movie. Who knows? But I assume that we'll get a few more scenes with Iman Vellani recruiting other young characters.
Yeah, it was during that scene that Kamala mentioned that someone had a son or something like that. I didn't hear who.
Daughter.
Oh.
Ant-Man.
Oh. Okay, cool.
In the mid-credits scene, Monica wakes up in the alternate reality she was trapped in a hospital bed. Next to her is her mom, Maria Rambeau, aka the superhero Binary, and Dr. Hank McCoy, aka Beast. Great way to end the movie. I actually think that this end credit scene alone is going to bring a lot of people to the theater to see the film. Even though, the movie isn't projected to do all that great financially, so many people are going to get excited by this end credit scene.
Actually, that scene has already leaked online. So I think a lot of people are just bootlegging it on Twitter.
Everybody stay off the damn internet until you see this movie. That's my suggestion. And if you've listened to this review, I'm assuming that you have seen the movie. But that does it for the movie. Overall, the film is a mixed bag. On one hand, it's all over the place. On the other hand, it's really enjoyable. Since it follows a number of Marvel films and TV series, the movie is structurally messy, but it provides a fun time with lots to get excited about for the MCU's future. I'm rating the film 3.5 stars, a fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, I guess I would give this a fresh rating as well. Just barely, but I think it deserves it. I would definitely recommend it for people on the fence, whether or not they've seen any of the prior television shows and lead up to this movie. I definitely think it could have and should have been better than it was, but I still really like the characters, if not the story.
Yeah, the movie's passable, which, I'm okay with. I think it was fine. I think 3.5 stars is certainly a more honest rating than what you gave for Blue Beetle and The Flash. I think everybody should give Jonathan shit for giving The Flash 4.5 stars and Blue Beetle 4. Because I don't think Blue Beetle was better than this movie. I think Jonathan's bias is showing.
All right, maybe The Flash should not have been 4.5 stars. I could see 4 stars for that because I've seen it a few times recently. And I think I gave it 4.5 just because I got to see Christopher Reeve as Superman again. So yeah, call it like immediately post-review bias. As time has passed, I do think that's 4 stars. Blue Beetle's 4 stars too, though. Like, Blue Beetle was better than the Marvels.
If you say so, bro, if you say so.
I do say so.
But that does it for this review, guys. Let us know what you thought about the movie by writing to us at dynamicduelpodcast@gmail.com or by visiting us on Instagram or X. You can find links to all of our accounts by checking out our show notes or visiting our website at dynamicduel.com.
And on our site, you could also find a link to our Patreon page, where you can join our Dynamic 2.0 tier and chat with us and fellow listeners, our Fantastic 4 tier, which gets you bonus content each month, our X-Force tier that makes you an executive producer of this podcast, or our newest tier that lets you join our Dynamike podcast network. If you can't join Patreon, you could still support the show by signing up for our e-newsletter, also at dynamicduel.com, so you'll never miss an episode.
Please don't forget to also visit our website to leave a donation for Pop Culture Classroom, which will get you a digital poster of our upcoming charity duel episode in December, Alfred Pennyworth versus Edwin Jarvis. Our next episode is going to be a duel. I know that Loki Season 2 has had its season finale by this point, but we're actually going to kick that review back a week because Jonathan will be traveling for work. So next episode is going to be in lead up to the upcoming team duel of the Legion of Doom versus the Masters of Evil. Therefore, we are pitting Enchantress versus Enchantress. DC's Enchantress versus Marvel's Enchantress.
Yeah, this will be the first time we're pitting two characters with the same name against each other.
And Marvel's Enchantress kind of ties into Loki Season 2, given that Enchantress is also an Asgardian, like Loki.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, but that does it for this episode. We want to give a big thanks to our executive producers, Ken Johnson,
John Starosky,
Zachary Hepburn,
Dustyn Balcom,
Miggy Matanguihan,
Brandon Estergard,
Nathaniel Wagner,
Levi Yeaton,
Nick Abanto,
Austin Wesolowski,
AJ Dunkerley,
Scott Camacho,
Adam Speas,
and Andrew Schunk for helping make this podcast possible. And we'll talk to you guys next week.
Up, and away!
True believers.
Higher, further, faster, with extra mayo.